Okay, let's get started. Week 2 of Chatzitzas. All right, this is where the fun is. All right, so we discussed the concept. Obviously, we all know a woman's not allowed to be toveles. She can't do tefillah with a chatztitza. What is a chatztitza? So we said midiraisa, rubo yamakbid. That's a chatztitza. That will never happen. Lamaisa. Midirabanan, we have miat umakbid, which is what we're generally discussing. Now, mir umakbid, seemingly anything on your body that a woman doesn't want, or doesn't want at any other time, whether it's now or whether it's a different time. Now, we discussed that there's certain different heterim that might exist. For example, something is internal to the body, it's belua, that will not be an issue. If something is davar she'im by mamish, doesn't have mamashis to it, that may be a heter. If something is going to be attached to the woman's body for a long period of time, that may be a heter. We saw it depending on the situation. At least certainly a sniff leheter. It's something that will add up to being part of a heter. Something that a woman needs for, it'll be painful to remove, might be a heter. And we discussed these basic concepts last week, and now we're going to go further in the practical examples. So, let's go from here. Blisters. So if a woman has a blister, normal blister, that's not a chatztitza, you shouldn't open them. But l'maisa, if you did open them and there is pus that started to come out of the blister, l'chatchila, you should remove the excess, the pus and the loose skin once it already was opened. If it's closed, keep it closed. But once it's become open, you should try to remove that pus and excess skin. Whatever could be removed without too much pain should be removed. If it's painful to remove, then you could let it remain. Warts are not a chatztitza. Corns are not a chatztitza, but they should be softened to loosen them up. Hard skin. So hard skin is not a chatztitza. For example, the Shevet Levi says you don't need to use one of those, even though something actually interesting that I think there's a difference between what they teach in America versus what they teach in Eretz Yisrael, to my understanding. I think it's called a pumic stone that pumice. I know how it's written. I don't know how it's pronounced. I'll be honest, I never used one. So a pumice stone. So like the Shevet Levi says, you don't have to do that. You don't have to. She doesn't have to do that to get rid of the hard skin, because the hard skin is not a chatztitza. We are naig to, it's good just anyways, a woman's going to take a bath anyways or whatever. We soften it up and that's good enough. Blackheads, if a woman normally doesn't get rid of her blackheads, then it's fine. If a woman normally does get rid of her blackheads, she should lichatchila try to get rid of the blackheads. If she doesn't, it's not considered a chatztitza. Dandruff. So once again, dandruff you try your best to get rid of, but it's not really a chatztitza, because since dandruff is loose, it's not actually sticky, it's not stuck to your head. It might be in between hairs, but since it's a loose thing, therefore it's not really deemed a chatztitza. But once again, you try to get rid of it to the best of your ability. Nail polish. I think we discussed nail polish quite a bit last week. We got into it. And Bekitzer, Minig Yisrael, part of the Ramah that we discussed, that we lichatchila get rid of everything, so we would lichatchila get rid of nail polish. But lemaisa, nail polish that was fully it wasn't cracked, it wasn't broken, it wasn't whatever, and it was on well, since it's there for noy, it's there for beauty purposes. That's another heter that I didn't discuss today in the beginning. If something's there for beauty purposes, it doesn't actually act as a chatztitza. And once again, the minhag of our women is we get rid of everything. But l'maisa tachas is it's not really a chatztitza. And the mikva over here in Nachlod allows women to go with nail polish, primarily referring to the type of women that come with pants and without their hair covered. That type of situation, they allow them to come with their nail polish, because really, maker adin, it's perfectly fine. Fake nails. Fake nails are a replacement nail on top of your nail. It's not your real nail. So obviously we're going to lichatchila get rid of them. But something interesting, I saw that the chut shani is mekel. L'maisa, if a woman was, let's say she was tovel with it by mistake, the fake nails. So the Mesa, the Chut Shani is Mekel. Because why? Same idea. They're there for beauty purposes. And since they're there for beauty purposes, they're not really a chatztitza. But we could hear how fake nails is the extra chiddush on top of nail polish. Because the nail polish it probably is a davar sheyesh by mamish, but just barely a davar sheyesh. But it doesn't have significant mamashis. Whereas the fingernails they're significant, the fake fingernails, but l'maisa the chut shani is still mekel. Doesn't say advise that you should do it l'chatchila, but l'maisa he is mekel. Okay, fake eyelashes. That's already, we consider that to be a completely external item. Fake nails is kind of a replacement of your natural nails, and it goes on. For some reason, we view fake eyelashes as that's just a step further, and that's even more external to the body, and that we are going to view that as a chatztitza. I didn't see the chut shani on come to save the day on the fake eyelashes. Or maybe in Bnei Brak they just don't have fake eyelashes. That's also possible. I don't know. Okay, what about makeup? So we all know, din l'chatchil and the Rama, as we discussed, the minhag of Bnei Yisrael nowadays is that we get rid of everything. But let's just take a step and think about it. Should makeup be a chatztitza? It's for noi. And it's usually a davar shein by mamish. No real mamashes to the makeup. Now, I heard somebody claiming, and I'm not a professional on this, but l'chayr makes sense. The makeup that they do for a kala by her wedding, where the makeup artist sits there for an hour and a half painting her face and making her look like somebody else, that makeup is a davar sheyesh by mamish. But the normal makeup that a regular woman wears in a regular normal circumstance, obviously I think depends on the woman, we can't say this altogether, but usually it's not this layer upon layer upon layer type makeup that would be seemingly considered a davar shein by mamish. Something that you probably, if you put her finger against her skin, would she get anything? I think regular makeup, you're not going to really get much by going like this. But maybe that thick, makeup artist stuff, you probably would get something on your finger. I'm guessing. I haven't tried this one at home, but that's what I would assume. So the Maisa, is a woman allowed to go to the mikva, be tovel with the makeup? The answer is no, because we had the Ramah, and we even showed that the Svardim, I saw that the Ben Ish Chai, I don't think I quoted it last week, I saw it after. The Ben Ish Chai says the minhag of the Svardim is like this Ramah, that they get rid of everything, even a miyat she'ein makbid, the minhag is to get rid of. But there are times where you're going to have some shaylas, some issues, some situations. The mother of the kala by the Shabbos Shev Brachos, or maybe the kala herself by the Shabbos Shev Brachos. There was a kala nida, and now it's by a Shabbos Shev, and it's going to be very embarrassing if she shows up in this public family forum without makeup. Then there is potential for a Rav to give a heter for her to be toveles with makeup. I don't think we could apply rules here, but I think you have to ask a shayla in such a situation. But you should know there is a shayla to ask in a situation where a woman needs it because she's going to be embarrassed on a Friday night tefillah. If she doesn't put on makeup beforehand, then there is what to discuss. Okay. And you'll see from here, this next example, you'll be surprised. Hair dye. A woman has black hair, she dyes it blonde. Could she go to the mikvah with her hair dyed? So, what is hair dye? Hair dye is something that's covering the hair, I guess. I don't know. Does it get into the kishkas? Is it covering it? I don't know the science behind hair dye, exactly how it does work. It's a chemical and actually changes it's not just covering it, it's actually going in and changing the fiber of what it is. Next question is, what was the hair dye at the time of the Rajba? I'm guessing at the time of the Rajba, it was something that just covered the outside. And the Rajba says, I don't know if that's true. I don't have any hair dye historians to consult. But maybe I should try Google. I don't know. I'm not sure. So he says that it's allowed. Why? For two reasons. Reason number one is that it's for noi. It's to make, she's doing it to make herself look better. Reason number 2 is it's a davar she'ein by mamish. And since it's a davar she'ein by mamish, it's fine. And by the way, I want to point out that this is actually a very big chiddush. You know why? Because we're not only in a shayla of miyad umak, but remember what I said last time from the Sidrei Tahara that we view each body part, each hair segment as its own entity, and therefore each hair. We said there are when we discuss what's considered miyad and what's considered roiv in terms of akbada, we discussed that the hair is considered its own entity. And there's the hair of the head, and the hair of the armpits, and the hair of Oisamakim. Each one is considered its own entity of the woman. Once again, obviously, if she shaves them, she shaves them. But if she has hair, there's talking about a woman with hair on her head. And this is going to be, you're dyeing your whole head. So this is going to be a case of roiv. So this is going to be maybe even potential deraisa. And the lemaisa, the Rajba is mekel, and this tells a lot. However, if you have it's done in a way that she doesn't like it, where you have the roots are already back to her natural color, but the longer hairs are blonde, but by the roots it's black. And if she wouldn't like how that looks, that already the person can say would be a chatztitza. And just derech agav, as a side point on this whole thing the person we're discussing, it seems to be that we're probably discussing a woman that doesn't cover her hair. And you see all the chutshani, all the poskim are getting involved in the shayla. And it's just it's interesting to note that they didn't get up there and start screaming asur to not cover your hair, etc. They were dyeing the shayla as for this woman that probably is not covering her hair. This woman who's dyeing her hair. I mean, I guess you could have situations that a woman's dyeing her hair for her husband. Most of the time, I think that women are dyeing their hair. It's that they don't cover their hair. But all the poskim are weighing in and dyeing the shayla, and the Maisa they say you could rely on the Rajba. Even though it would be surprising based on where we've led till now. Okay, weiter. Stains. Let's say her skin is stained from whatever, ink stain or beets. She was, making some food with beets that stained her finger. So you should try to get rid of it as much as you could. If you can't get rid of it, so it's fine. That's not considered a makbid. Derech Agiv, there's a shayla that people ask. They have nowadays this makeup that's permanent or semi-permanent. It lasts for, they call it, for a couple of years. It goes into your skin. It's a whole process, procedure, etc. So the poskim say there's no problem with chatztitza because it's actually under your skin. But there is a problem. Most poskim say there's a problem with tattoo. It's actually a problem of ksuas kaka, that you're actually making a tattoo on your skin, even though that's not how we generally envision tattoos. As they make it look like you did your makeup nicely, and it just lasts for a couple of years. So no problem of chatztitza, but yes, there probably is a problem of tattoo. So it's interesting. It's becoming much more popular in the world, from what I hear. Okay, much more in America than here. I don't know the world at large, but that much I do know, and that's what I've been informed. Splinter. Let's say the woman has a splinter. Is that a chatztitza? So if the splinter is under skin level, it is not a chatztitza. If it's at skin level or above skin level, then it is a chatztitza. The Chutz Shani says if it's a skinny splinter that isn't causing you pain, that it's not a chatztitza. I would have a very difficult time applying this Chutz Shani L'Maisa, because who knows where to draw the line, and what counts into his small splinter. I don't know. One man's small splinter is another man's big splinter. Tzarichin exactly how to apply that heter of the Chutz Shani, the Rav Nissim Karelitz. A blood clot, which is similar to our staining type things, which you see something under the skin, that is not a chatztitza issue because it's under the skin level. Once again, under the skin level is not a chatztitza. Somebody that has a screw that was inserted under skin level, not a chatztitza. Whatever type of metal, whatever it is. Somebody that has a pacemaker is not going to be a chatztitza. It's under skin level. Somebody that has a IUD inserted for birth control purposes. So that's so far in the body that we call it belua, and we'll discuss in a minute when I'll contrast that to I'll just do it right now, a nuvering. When something is deep into the body, we're going to discuss ear, nose, oisim. When it's deep into the body, then it is not chatztitza. So IUD, which is inserted deep into the body, what does IUD stand for? Interuterary device. Uterine. Okay, sorry, whatever. Something that prevents a form of contraception. So that goes very deep, and therefore that is not a chatztitza. However, a nuvering, the poskim say bepashtus or lichatchila, that it is considered a chatztitza and that does need to be removed before, because that doesn't go nearly as deep in as the IUD. She actually herself, the IUD, a doctor puts it deep in and out. The nuvering, she does herself. So it's going, as far as her fingers is as far as it could be going, and that is something that she needs to take out, which is interesting. I'll tell you a shayla that I had, and then I saw that there are some that asked, because I was surprised by this psak. They based it off some other case that was in the time of the Rishonim, time of the early Achronim, which was some woman had some condition that they needed to insert some ring to keep the uterus from falling or something like that. Once again, it's very hard to understand medical conditions that you read in early Achronim-ish, but some form of a ring that they would insert to keep the uterus from falling down or something like that, and they say that it was a problem of chatztitza. And the poskim nowadays compare the nuvering to that, whatever it was exactly. Now, it's very interesting because, when it comes to the ear, we consider the outside of the ear, that's considered goloi, regular. The little bit inside, as far as your finger goes, that's what we consider beis hastarim. That's someone internal, like inside your mouth, as we discussed, or maybe in between your toes, or these types of places, right? That's what we consider the part that goes from the surface to as far as your finger goes, not so much. Anything further than your finger goes is belua. So when you're sticking your Q-tip in, that's all belua. That's not really a chatztitza. What's really internal, above the little basic amount over there. Now, also with your nose, they say the little bit you could see in somebody's nose, that's the beis hastarim. Further deeper up your nose, that's considered belua. Whereas it's interesting, by oisim makom, we are going, as far as her finger goes to put in the nuvering, and all of a sudden that's not considered belua. I would have thought that's kal v'chomer. If you're going to do a little bit more than your finger in, your ear is considered belua. Certainly a full finger's length up oisim makom you would assume to be considered belua. So I saw an answer. Now I don't remember anymore where I saw this answer, but I saw an answer in one of the poskim that he says, because since by oisim makom, that's a makom of ikar shtamshis is internal in oisim makom, ad shemakom shemesh dash, as far as the shemesh will go, so to speak, that's considered an ikar usage area, and therefore if it's an ikar usage area, it doesn't get the din belua. But I guess sticking deep into your ear or deep in your nose is not considered ikar usage. I guess we're not expected to be nose pickers, and therefore that won't be considered ikar usage, and that's why he wants to give a teretz to explain the difference. Okay, interesting. So therefore, cotton in the ear, always some people have some medical conditions that they need cotton in the ear. Ask a shayla. L'maisa, if it's really needed, you're more or less going to get a heter, but ask a shayla. Okay, we discussed, I think last week we discussed the rings on the finger, correct? We discussed that last week. Okay, so we'll leave that. Earrings need to be removed. Okay, a big chatztitza that you see the Shulchan Aruch talking a lot about is knotted hair. This is actually the most difficult of the chatzitzas to get rid of in the body. This is the most challenging, is getting rid of the knots of the hair, and that's something that we consider knotted hair to be a chatzitza, so we need to get rid of it as to the best of our ability. Braided hair. So braided hair is actually machlokes, not a new machlokes, it's the old machlokes. L'maisa, we're machmer. Now, why by knotted hair it's automatically a problem, but braided hair is a machlokes whether it's a problem.
No, it's not as tight.
Not as tight. That's what I was thinking. Like if you make a single knot in the hair, it's very tight. You can't undo it. Braided hair you could play with. I guess so. I give the same answer, but I'm not completely satisfied with it. I'm semi-satisfied, if you know what I mean. But okay, it's something that the answer must be some. That's what
I never made a braid so tight that I thought water wouldn't be able to get into it.
I hear. I never made a braid at all. Fine. So lice, unfortunately, is a real issue in this country. So lice. So you got to get rid of them. It's very hard to say. I mean, there might be. These women aren't makbid about lice. I think they are. So you really have to get rid of it. If she can do it herself, she can do it herself. If she needs to hire somebody to get rid of it, she needs to hire somebody to get rid of it. Lice, you really need to get rid of the lice. What about nits? So nits, she has to start whatever treatment she deems as a worthy treatment of getting rid of the lice. Now that might be a little bit different from different people, but she has to be whatever her degree of acting upon it is going to be. Whether it's whatever shampoos, or it's whatever getting rid of most of them as she could, or rubbing whatever potion she read online into her hair, or I don't know, whatever it may be. Huh? Lice comb. Whatever it is that in her world is the proper way of dealing with it, she has to have done that proper way of dealing with it, that she would be, so to speak, satisfied by what she did. Now, if she did all that, and she comes back from the mikva, and she finds a nit in her hair, it's okay, because she did everything that she could have, so to speak. We're going to be a little bit more lenient on the nits than the lice, because the degree of hakbada is different. There's definitely hakbada on both of them. But the degree of hakbada is different between the actual lice and the nits.
I thought we'd be more worried about the adherence factor.
Because the lice are loose, you're saying. I hear. It's an interesting point. Yeah, Leilenu. Fine. Fine. I think we discussed this, but last week, the nails, that we have to cut the nails. Did we discuss that? We discussed that, yeah. And the shach brings that Mig Yisrael to cut the nails. And therefore you have to cut the nails, and we say is, if you could see the nails from looking at it like this, they're too long. Straight. The nails are above then that's too long. Okay. Now what if she's a woman that refuses to cut her nails? Not going to be our firm woman. Maybe one of those women that are coming in nachlaot with pants and not covered here, semi-firm or whatever. I'm not cutting my nails. So there's the heter of the Achiezer that says the whole reason that we have to cut the nails is because once it's a minhag in Klal Yisrael to cut your nails, now having the nails is deemed a chatztitza. But if she's not the type of woman that would cut her nails, so therefore that minhag doesn't apply to her. It's the heter of the Achiezer. But you can't. If a regular firm woman decides 1 week I don't want to cut my nails, or 1 month I don't want to cut my nails, you can never apply that Achiezer. It has to be somebody that's chutz from the camp of a regular firm lady. Okay. Now, what happens if a woman shows up to the mikvah Friday night, looks at her nails and says, "Oy vey, I didn't cut them, but it's ready after shkia." What does she do? The Taz says, just clean it out well, and you could be toveles. She could be tovel. The Shach says, she should ask a guy to cut it. Preferably is to ask a guy to bite it off. Because to ask the guy to do it with Amira Akum Vashine. If that's not happening, which it probably is not happening, then you ask the guy to cut it off. Now, it happens
a serious consideration, a guy to bite off all 10 of your fingernails.
Yeah, that would be the most lechatchila thing to do. Just, if it's not happening, which it's probably not happening, then you have the guy cut it off. So that's what the Shach says. The the Maisa, the psak is like the shach. So if there's a guy available, that's what we're going to do. And the bigger mikvahs have a guy there on Friday night. The little small mikvahs generally don't, but there's some areas like you go to, I don't know, Muncie, and they have these like mikvahs with like, 30 rooms or whatever. So the big mikvahs usually have a guy on staff Friday night. The little small ones, it's just generally not financially practical to do that. But whatever. Some of them might even have arrangements with the local guy. Maybe it's a local Filipino caregiver or something like that you could run to or something like that. But that's for the mikvah ladies to figure out. So the Maisa, since we pass like the shach, if a woman has long fingernails and you don't have a guy, pashas she cannot be tovel. And would have to wait to Motzei Shabbos if you cannot find the guy. Toenails are the same basic halacha, but toenails are more makel. Like in this type of shayla, where the toenails weren't cut on a Friday night, then we would probably be makel with just cleaning it out. What about a hangnail? So where you have, it's a little cut but not fully cut. So if it's just a meat that's cut, so we say it's a chatztitza, because the nail rests against the fingernail, the cut part rests against the finger part, and that creates a chatztitza. If it's roiv hanging, so we say it's not a chatztitza. Now, the shach says perhaps that even when roiv is hanging, we should be machmir because it's oimid to be cut. Since it's oimid to be cut, we view it as if it's already cut, so to speak, and the point where it's attached acts as a chatztitza. The Lamaisa, the Chachmas Adam, is mekel against the shach. He doesn't buy this oimid to be cutting, and the chutshani passes like the shach. The chutshani, passes like the Chachmas Adam that he's mekel by this hangnail, which is roiv hanging. I would point out that I actually, from reading the shach and reading I feel like this doesn't make sense nowadays, how we conclude within the shach, and I find it hard to, personally, I'm not here to get involved and argue with Nissan Karelitz, I'm way out of my league, but I'm just thinking about modern day women, and I feel like it doesn't make sense. We select the shach, if all the nails are there, right, if all the nails, set the Chachmas Adam, all the nails are there, it's made to be cut, and therefore they act as a chatztitza. If there's a hangnail that's dangling, we're going to say in the Chachmas Adam, that's not made to be cut. I think with our women nowadays, there's no more made to be cut than a nail that's 80%. Like, everybody's dying to cut it. How long would it take the average woman to get that nail off her finger during the week? I would say approximately 3 seconds. And if it's on Shabbos, that woman would be chalashing for the end of Shabbos if she's at tzadekis. If she's not at tzadekis, it might not make it. You know what I'm saying? So I think that's very oimid to be cut. So to say that doesn't fit into be oimid to be cut, I think it's a big cool of chutshani. I'm not here to make chumras where the Nissan Karelitz is mekel. I'm not here to be machmir. I'm just saying from a svara standpoint, I find it a little bit hard to swallow that heter. And I think, once again, the Shulchan Aruch is not machmir on this. But if you're going to go for the shach who's machmir, you can't say that doesn't apply in this case. It applies. The mitzias is there. The mitzias that the shach was worried about is there. And I don't think we could say that it's not there nowadays. Okay. Something actually interesting I was thinking, there's an interesting halacha. What would you say if it's more than half off? There's a halacha that if your fingernail is more than half off the Hilchos Shabbos and it's hurting you, you're allowed to bite off the rest. It's very mechudishtik halacha, but that's the halacha. It's right if it's off, it's bothering you, you're allowed to bite it off. The rabbanim b'makom tsar. Shtei the rabbanim b'makom tsar. Because biting is a mishunadik away. It's and since it's rive off, it's already rubik kulei in a way, and whatever that chiddush is. Now I want to know if this thing is rive hanging based on what we just said, and there's no guy around. Could you bite it off yourself on Shabbos.
No, it's not.
Huh? So what's the tsar? I'm saying, there's no tsar. The mental anguish of not being able to go to the mikvah. What do you think? So the mice of the placement didn't say it, so I'm not here to be mechadish. My shoulders aren't big enough to say such a thing. But I thought it was very interesting. I could hear it to say, definitely if it was still bein hashmashos, I really think, I'm scared to give such a psak because I don't know if my shoulders are big enough. Liyitzor, my shoulders were big enough. I would say bein hashmashos, bite it off yourself.
Is it mamish pain that
yeah,
or are they saying that it's just bothering them, that they see it and it's like hanging there and it's bothering them?
It sounds like pain. It sounds like pain. So, to include it over here, during bein hashmashos, I would really think it should be allowed, but once again, I can't take that upon my shoulders, but I would really think it's allowed. Once it's Shabbos already, I guess we're going to only say it by physical pain, but not mental anguish. But sometimes we do view mental anguish. For example, the classic case of the kid who's locked in the room on Shabbos, we break down the door because of mental anguish. There is such a concept. But there is to differentiate. It's not necessarily the same exact thing. Okay. Teeth. Now, it's interesting. In your mouth is a basis sperm, as I mentioned earlier, which means the water, she doesn't need to open up her mouth when she goes into the mikvah, but there can't be any chatztitza in her mouth. It has to be royal bias mayim. So she has to clean out her mouth, even though water does not need to enter. If she has removable dentures, that's a chatztitza. If she has permanent false teeth, that's not a chatztitza, because the false teeth become now part of her body. If she has a permanent filling, same thing. That becomes part of her body. It's also balua, is another heter. What about a temporary filling? So, the place can discuss, it depends on how long the temporary filling is going to be there. So, how long, it needs to be there for a significant amount of time. What is a significant amount of time? And there's other heterim that are also helping. So we have significant amount of time. The filling is somewhat balua. It's inside the tooth. It's also something that its connection is the type of connection that you need a uman, you need a professional to get rid of. And there's another part that helps nowadays. The temporary fillings of nowadays are very strong, and they could really last for many years, maybe a lifetime. They're not it's something solid. Yeah, we replaced it with something better because we have very good technology, but be'etzem, it's something that could last. So what's the deal with the temporary fillings? So Lamaisa, based on the Avni Nevzer, would have to last for 6 months. The Chalkas Yosef, it would only have to last 1 week. Many of the poskim go with the din, at least in a non-difficult situation, it should need to last for a month. It's the filling that's planned on being in for 1 month. When does the count start of this month? So according to Rav Yashiv, the count starts a month from the date of the mikvah. According to Shovavim Chatzitzas, it's a month from when the filling was put in. So that could be a very big nafkamina. Now, the place we discuss what we view the ending point. Is it based on when it could be done? What if it could be done tomorrow, but tachlis, there's no appointment for another month. So the Maisa, we are makel on that. It's a machlokes, but the Maisa, we are makel that if you don't have an appointment for another 5 weeks, even though technically the work could be done tomorrow, but you don't have an appointment for another 5 weeks, that's considered something that's in there for a month. Now, there's a very interesting thing. Actually, any women listening to this, fast forward 2 minutes. There's a interesting idea of Shlomo Zalman. He says that what you could do is, don't worry, they're not really fast forwarding, I know it. This is actually what they're going to want to replay, So he says the husband could tell the woman that, I got a call from the dentist that your appointment was postponed for a month, and you're only getting your temporary filling out in 5 weeks' time, even though it's not true. And then she's toveles thinking it's going to be in there for 5 weeks, and then the next day he tells her, oh, by the way, your appointment's still on Tuesday. And because it goes busser her das. And if she thinks it's going to be in there for a month, it's going to be there for a month. I would add a little nikuda on top of Shlomo Zalman. It has to depend on, if you're a good liar and you know that you could get away with this and she'll buy it from you and she'll believe you. How would one know if they're a good liar? I don't know. Somebody will just know. But you have to be able to, again, lying for shalom very often, You have to know that you could actually get away with it, I would say. But if you could get away with it and she's going to buy your story and it makes sense, then that would work. Now, what about braces? Braces are a big shayla. It's interesting. In America, it's not a very common shayla because, most people get braces from 12 to 16. In Eretz Yisrael, it's much more common for people who are, marriageable age to get braces. I think because, their parents didn't want to pay for it, now they have some money, they're going to pay for it, etc., etc. I don't know, different things in society, I don't know exactly. But I notice it, you'll see 22-year-olds with braces in Eretz Yisrael, you don't see it very often in America. For whatever the exact reason. But I think there's a mitzias to that. So braces. So the Minchas Yitzchak and the Shevet Levi are mater a woman to have braces. Most poskim are machmir and don't allow. Say braces are a chatztitza is what most poskim say. Rav Moshe Rav Yashiv said they're mater braces if it's there for medical purposes, so to speak, to keep her teeth from falling out. But if it's there for cosmetic purposes, they are machmer. And now cosmetic purposes is like 97% of the time that people get braces is for cosmetic purposes, not to prevent their teeth from falling out. So most cases they're pretty much being machmer. Now, why is it that everybody's being machmer? Let's think about it. One positive is it's being attached for a long time. But what's the whole svar of something attached for a long time? The medical things, etc. The idea usually that we say, the lumdus is, that's not considered makbid. They want that, let's say cast, we're going to discuss the cast in a minute. They want the cast there. They want the, whatever it is there. That's usually the svaras, they want the filling there. That's one of these svaras that help us say that it's not a problem. But the braces are annoying. So it's much more difficult. Yes, you want it there because in the future your teeth are going to look nicer. But it's something that's very bothersome, very annoying. Is it there for night? No. Now it doesn't look good. Maybe in the future your teeth will look good. Right now it doesn't look good. Right now it's annoying. One positive that you have is it will be there for a long time. Another positive is that you need a uman to take it off.
Yeah, right now your hand's broken, your cast is annoying and itchy, and you need a uman to take it off.
Well, we'll see. What happens to be the cast wasn't the best example. Cast most machmer also. Yeah, right. So cast actually is. You're right. I didn't give the best example with the cast because it's maybe a little more room to be makel. But so the Mesa, it's not pashut. It's not bulua. It's annoying. It's whatever. But the Mesa, if somebody really needs it or whatever, there are mekilim, as I said, the Minchas Yitzchak and the Shevet Levi are mekel. But one thing that you have to watch out for is this. It's a very interesting thing. Let's say the orthodontist says it's time you can take off your braces. In a month's time you can take off your braces, right? And she gets an appointment. She gets an appointment for 2 months. That's when she gets the appointment. And in the middle, has to be toveles. At this time, her teeth are already good. She's chalashing to get these braces off at this point. She's makpedis that they're on. Then it's a real problem. And most people probably don't think about this per se. But then it's a real problem. What's the heter? You don't need it. You don't want it. It's just that you don't have an appointment yet. That's going to be a problem. Okay, I want to go back to temporary fillings for a second. There's one thing I forgot to mention. Or two things, actually. I was discussing temporary fillings that are the type that could, they put in for however long, a month or whatever it is, 2 months or whatever it may be, but it could really last a lifetime. There's another type of temporary filling that they have, which is a very temporary filling. Sometimes they'll have it when somebody's getting a root canal. And it's the type of thing that's just there for a week, a couple of days, until your next appointment. But it's not a very solid matzav. It's a very shvacha matzav. It's something also that if the person wanted to, they could get it out themselves. You don't really need a dentist to get it out. I mean, you're not going to get it out because it's going to cause you pain. But if you wanted to get it out, you could. And it's never going to last very long. That type of really temporary filling is b'pashtus a problem. So a regular temporary filling, l'meis, we're going to be makel, even though there was what to discuss. But a very temporary filling, that is going to be more of a problem. A temporary crown could also be more of a problem. There's different types for different situations. To be honest, I didn't really understand the dentistry shabai. So I guess in each specific situation you have to ask a shayla. There are chalukim between different types of... I didn't really understand the dentistry, but apparently a temporary crown is a bigger issue than a temporary filling, but it's not always a problem. It kind of depends whether it's really needed or not really needed, or I don't really know. So ask a shayla if that ever happens. Yes. Weiter. A tooth waiting to be pulled is not a chatztitza. Even though you might want to bring a svara of oimeid, whatever, we don't say that because it's the natural part of the body. But the body of shulchan happens to be was machmer by a tooth that needs to be pulled. But the general psak of the poskim is that we are makel. Plaque, obviously, plaque is one of those things that you get rid of. You brush your teeth before going to mikva, whatever. But l'meis, it's not a chatztitza. Contact lenses are pashtus a chatztitza, because it blocks the water from getting to the eye. In a b'diavad case where a long-term contact lens is not the type that you replace daily, but the type that you have for many months. I don't have contacts. The type that you have for many months, you every night take it out, or you leave it in at night?
Take it out.
You still take, even the permanent ones you take out. Is there such mitzias as a contact lens that you keep in for many months at a time? It sounded to me that that's what Ramosha was talking about, but I didn't think that was the Metzias. So I'm not sure what Ramosha was talking about. He said something about a long-term... he probably was talking about the same Metzias as we have nowadays, but I guess it's a more... I don't know. I'm not sure. But it seems to be Ramosha was makel by a long-term contact lens, only b'diavad. He wasn't saying you could go to the mikveh that way, but if a woman did already go to the mikveh that way with the long-term contact lens, you could be makel. But I wasn't clear whether his metzias was something that actually was stayed in the eyes for 4 months. I think that would irritate the eyes, right?
And ruin your eyesight.
Ruin your eyesight? Fine. Okay, so don't do that at home. I don't know. Baruch Hashem, I don't. No glasses, no contacts. Play on her. Eye mucus. So eye mucus that went out of the eye already is the chatztitza. People are makbid about that. They don't want that type of stuff. What if it's in the eye? So if it's dry, the mucus in the eye, that's a chatztitza. That's a problem. If it is wet, then it is okay. Any dirt, even a little speck of dirt in the eye, or a bug if that's ever happened to you, you get a bug in your eye or a little speck of dirt, that's a chatztitza. Even though it's teeny, it's everybody's makbid about something in their eye. It's not very pleasant having something in your eye, and everybody is pretty makbid on that. Bandages are chatztitza. What about casts? So casts pashas are chatztitza. There are some that want to be makel and say it's like, since it's serving your arm and you need it there for your arm, therefore it's going to be like batal to your arm. There are some svaras out there, even though they're not pashid. But the maisa, the mitzias generally is that you're not allowed to get the cast wet anyways, and since you can't get the cast wet anyways, it's going to be a problem. So the mice is going to be a problem. Stitches. So the type of stitches that you have to go back to the doctor to get removed are pashtus a problem. They're chatztitza. You don't want it there. They don't like it there. Yes, you need it there temporarily to heal your wound, but you don't need it there. When your wound is healed, you don't want it there. So it's like one of these items, like, we said the ring, you sometimes want it, you sometimes don't want it. That's a chatztitza. This is something that you sometimes want it, you sometimes don't want it. And therefore it's going to pretty much certainly be a chatztitza. Now, if it's cut to skin level, so most poskim are still machmer, even if it's cut to skin level, but the Shevet Levi Rav Vosner is makel when the stitches are cut to skin level. Dissolvable stitches, they're the type that the doctor puts in and they never need to be taken out. They somehow disappear on their own. However exactly that works. So Rav Shlomo Zalman and Rav Vosner are makel by dissolvable stitches, and Rav Nissen Karelitz, I think it is, and Rav Yashiv are machmer by dissolvable stitches. Ask a shayla depending on the situation. I would say, probably most places will probably say if you have to wait 3 more days until they dissolve, they'll probably tell you to wait 3 more days. If it's going to be the type of thing that's going to, 3 more weeks to go to the mikvah because another month and miss the whole thing, that'll probably be makel. But ask a shayla in that situation. New room we discussed. Okay. We could right now. The next chiluk is if chatzitzas are found after tefillah. Should we do that now, or should we save that for next week? Go for it. Okay. So let's see what happens if chatzitza is found after the woman comes out of the mikvah. Now, if the chatzitza is found like 5 seconds after the woman comes out of the mikvah, so whatever, just go back in. No, just solve everybody any issues and just go back in, and that makes life easier for everybody, right? Fine. And also, the second point is, if you see it 5 seconds after you come out of the mikvah, there wasn't much time for it to get onto you after you came out of the mikvah. So there's a good svar to say it probably was there beforehand, and she should just go back into the mikvah, and that's easy enough, no harm done. Okay. So first rule is, before we open up the Shulchan Aruch, so to speak, obvious is obvious. Right? If this is something that was obviously there beforehand, that she finds, right? Let's say she, wore eyeliner before, the days before the mikvah, and she didn't wear eyeliner after the mikvah, and she sees eyeliner on her eyelid, so it's from before. It doesn't make a difference what I'm going to say in a minute, because it's not a suffix, Or in the opposite, she didn't wear eyeliner for 3 weeks before the mikvah, and after the mikvah she put on eyeliner, and she saw a dot of eyeliner on her eyelid. So it's from afterwards. It's also no shayla. So that's the first rule. Obvious is obvious. Right? Okay. So now we're going to have to figure out what if it's not obvious? It's not obvious whether this chatzitza came before the mikvah or after the mikvah. Before I get involved in the details I'm going to do in a second, what would you think about this? So what type of suffix are we talking about? The Reis of the Rabbanan. Right? Miyat Shein Machbid, the Rabbanan. What do we usually say by the Rabbanans? Safek the Rabbanan L'Kula. However, this is a case of it's Chazik Isura. So we usually don't say Safek the Rabbanan L'Kula, but it's Chazik Isura. And this is also a Davar Sheish by Matirim. She could go back to the mikvah tonight, tomorrow night, whatever it is. So it's another reason going against us saying Safek the Rabbanan L'Kula. So off the bat, a suffix, you would say there's a tzad to be pushing towards being machmir. However, this woman did a chafifa. If she did a chafifa, she went and actively did her actions to get rid of these chatzitzas, and therefore you would assume, and she was shomer herself from the chafifa, presumably to the tefillah. We're going to discuss that in detail in a minute. So therefore, and after the mikvah, was she being shomer herself from chatzitzas? No. So therefore, that's as far as to say that they came afterwards. So that actually might take away the chazaka in a way, because so the svara came afterwards. I'm just giving you a little bit of the lumdus that the place can deal with before getting into the lamaisa. Okay, so if a woman did a chafifa in the same oina, the same time period, meaning she did the chafifa at night and did the tefillah at night, or in a rare case where you have a heter for tefillah during the day, she would do the chafifa during the day and the tefillah during the day. And as the shach adds in, it also has to be close time period. She did the chafifa at night, and she did the chafifa close. What's close? The place can say within 3 hours of the tefillah, she did the chafifa. So if you have those two checks, that the chafifa was done in the same period, they're both done at night, and they were both done within a 3-hour time period, you're going to see in a minute that we are going to be pretty mekel.
But so even if it's within 3 hours, but it's before Shkia, before...
Right, so that would not help. But you're going to see in a second that nowadays we're in a much better situation. In the pre-mikva building era, fancy mikva building era, this was a very applicable issue 7 days a week. Nowadays that we have mikva buildings that have showers, etc., and all women shower and comb their hair before being tovel. Even if she did she did her chafifa 4 hours earlier in the day, but she showered again at the mikvah, we consider that shower that she did in the mikvah like a chafifa. And therefore, outside of Friday night, which I'm going to discuss in a second, or the night of Yontif, it's always going to be a case where she did the chafifa and the combing before the tefillah. Unless it's some weird case that, I don't know, the mikvah had no hot water, there was no whatever. Unless something happens strange, weird. Nowadays, outside of Friday night, you're always going to be in this scenario of having the chafifa in the same aynah and within 3 hours of the tefillah. In any normal, not weird situation. Fine. Now, if a chatztitza is found, the halacha is, the Shulchan Aruch paskins, that, let's talk about a chatztitza first. Where did it come from? No idea. She has something smudged on her finger. She has some little stuff between her toes that she found. I don't know, whatever it is. Where did it come from? No idea. Right? Actually, maybe the between your toes, it came from the socks or stockings. Let me put that on the side, actually. Forget the thing between your toes. But you find some smudge on your finger. Where did it come from? No idea. You find the sticker on your leg. Where did it come from? A little, the kids play around with. I don't know where it came from, right? There's nothing, I don't recall doing anything that would have caused this on me. So, the Shulchan Aruch paskins, we are mekel, and she does not need to be toveles again. But then the Shulchan Aruch brings down the Rambam, who the Rambam says, Villa Rambam, benkach ubenkach tzricha tefillah acheres. Right? The Rambam says she does not require another tefillah. He's mekel that she doesn't require a chafifa, but a second chafifa. But the Rambam says that you have to require. She requires another tefillah. And the Maisa, the Sidrei Tahara and the Chachmas Adam say that we're machmir for the Rambam. What do we paskin the Maisa? So the Iker Din is like the Shulchan Aruch, that this woman that did on a regular Tuesday night, as she has her chafifa in the same aynah and within 3 hours, that if she finds a chatztitza, she does not need to be toveles again. We're good, we're toila, and we assume that it came afterwards. Right? However, since we have this Rambam, which is brought by the Shulchan Aruch as a second opinion, we tell her to be toveles again, if it could be done bekalas, meaning if it could be done easily. What is easily? So some say easily is if the local mikvah is still open. If the local mikvah is still open, she needs to go back to the local mikvah. But once the local mikvah is closed, you could be soymech on the Iker Din of the Shulchan Aruch that you found the chatztitza afterwards. She doesn't need to go back to be toveles. Now, even this might be a little bit difficult as a klal, because I would argue, I mean, it kind of depends. Meaning, if it's you don't have a car and you're a 15-minute walk away and it's raining, you can't tell me that's that's not easy. So normally that's going to be the normal klal, but there might be scenarios where it depends, or it could be the local mikvah is the one that's a 3-minute drive away is closed, but you have a car and you have underground parking, and you can take the elevator to your car and drive 7 minutes away to pull into the underground parking of that mikvah and whatever, it might not. That could be kal also. Obviously, depending on each person's situation. But the general rule in, I guess, normal weather, normal situation is if the local mikvah's open, then a woman should go back to the local mikvah. If the local mikvah is already closed, then she need not. She could be seimich on the ikar din of the Shulchan Aruch. Okay. Now, what if she didn't do the chafifa in the same time period as the tefillah? When does this come up? This comes up on Friday night or Yom Tov night. Because on Friday night, when she goes to the mikvah, she does not re-shower in that building because it's already Shabbos. So now it's going to be the chafifa was done Friday afternoon and the tefillah was done Shabbos night. So over there, so let's once again, if she was only oisik in the davar chatztitza, let me put it this way: if she doesn't know where it came from, I have no idea where that smudge came from, she has to be toveles again. Oh, what if the mikvah's closed? Sorry, you have to either go to the mikvah lady, get it opened, or you have to wait till Matzah Shabbos. Now, if it's something it's not something that she has no idea where it's from. So once again, if it's something that she only touched pre-mikvah, she was only oisik in stickers, she finds glue on her fingers, dried glue. She was only oisik in glue beforehand. Well, glue's not such a good example because she's probably not being oisik in glue on Shabbos. So, I don't know what the example is. Whatever it is, something that she was oisik, chicken juice, I don't know, whatever, So if she was oisik in the chicken juice only Erev Shabbos and not post mikvah, so then we all know it's from beforehand. That's obvious. If she was only oisik in it during the meal, and she wasn't oisik in it beforehand, so obviously it's from after. So that's also pashut, right? If it's something that she was oisik in before and after, right? Whether it came from some of her clothes or something that she was messing around with in her house, there's something going on. She was painting. There's wet paint in her house. She might have got the paint on before. She might have got the paint on afterwards. Whatever, lots of examples of what this could be. So we are lemaisa. The halacha is the Shulchan Aruch paskins that we are mekel and we are toila that it came afterwards. However, the shach brings the Bach and the Rashba that were machmer. Unless she says, Bari li, unless she says, I am certain it wasn't on my finger, that paint. It wasn't on my finger when I was toveles, we're machmer. So once again, the din of the Shulchan Aruch is mekel. The shach says that we're machmer for the Rashba and the Bach, who says that only if she says she knows it wasn't on her finger at the mikvah. Which once again there kind of gets into obvious case, so whatever. But I guess the point is you could rely on her. The Bari Shulchan has a little bit of a heter. I was actually by his kever yesterday. The Bari Shulchan has a heter that if she says, I know I did Ian, she's not confident enough to say, I know there was no paint there. But she says, I know I looked around at my fingers and my body, and I know I didn't see anything. I know I looked around, but not with the same confidence of I know there was no paint there. But I know I checked. That's good enough. So that's what the Bari Shulchan says. Lamaisa, once again, I assume the Sfaradim are not machmir for this. So the Sfaradim, if she was oisik in the thing before and after, she'd be mekel. the Ashkenazim, the Iker Din of the Shulchan Aruch is when she's Isaac before and after, we are Mekel. The Shach says to be Machmer. The Chayru we're Machmer for this Shach. But if she says Barili, and I'm fine relying on the body of Shulchan, if she says, I know I did the Ian, then we could be Mekel. And once again, since the Iker Din of the Shulchan Aruch is that we are Mekel, let's say you get into something which is very often going to be the case, if you think about it. We're very often going to get into a case where it's going to be a suffix chatztitza, a questionable chatztitza, a debatable chatztitza. Because we're usually finding something minor, something like not big dealish. Because a lot of the big dealish stuff she's going to get off. And that's, so often it's going to be, so if it's going to be something which is really a suffix, if it's a chatztitza altogether, and a Rav decides he wants to rely on the Iker Din of the Shulchan Aruch and not be machmir for the Shach in a suffix chatztitza situation, there's definitely room for a Rav to be Mekel. And just one last point with this we end, because I realized we got pretty late. We are even more Mekel by the base of starm. Let's say inside the mouth, for example, ears, nose, whatever it is, if a chatzitza is found then, even if the woman isn't sure if she washed it beforehand, did a chafifa beforehand, even if she's not sure about that, the psak of the Shulchan Aruch is we're still mekel and toila that it came after. The shach happens to quote the Rekeach, who's machmer in such a situation, but there's, without being too far in, because I see we're getting late, but the base of starm, there's even more room to be mekel by finding something after. I'll just do a sikum on this last point, the last section of finding something after the mikva, because it's a little complicated. Obvious is obvious. Obvious before, chatztitza. Obvious after, not chatztitza. A regular 6 nights a week where she did the chafifa and within the same einah and 3-hour period of the tefillah, we are mekel. However, we're machmir for the Rambam if it's easy. If it's easy to go back to the mikvah and be toveles again, we're machmir for the Rambam, but be'ikar adin, we're mekel. If it's a Friday night scenario where the chafifa was not in the same einah, not in the same night period as the tefillah, then the halacha is, if she was oisik in it afterwards, obviously it's not a problem. If she was only oisik before, obviously there's a problem. If she was oisik in the davar chaytzitz before and after, then if she's oisik in the davar chaytzitz before and after, then we are toila that it came afterwards, and the psak of the Shulchan Aruch is we are mekel. However, as he said, the shach brings the Rishonim, Rashba, and the Bach who are machmer, and we are generally machmer for that shach. However, once there's something else tilting towards kula, we'll take that something else which tilts towards kula to go to kula. And one point that I just skipped over right now is that on the Friday night, if the chatztitza came from, I don't know where that came from, then we are machmer, and we say she has to be toveles again. And that's it.